So hello, everyone. My name is Penny Wyatt, and I am the Director of Family Programs here at Tulane. And we are very, very glad that you've been able to join us this afternoon for our Supporting Your Student Through Academic Planning and Course Registration. We have presented this particular webinar for about 5 semesters now, and we think it's a really good service to provide for families as your students are starting to go through this registration process, to inform you more about how academic advising and planning and course registration works at Tulane, so that you can be the best supporter for your student as they go through this process. So you'll be able to know more about how all this works so that you can help remind your students of this information and the resources and advice that they can acquire as they engage in this, so they can make really thoughtful choices in their academic planning and prepare very thoroughly for the spring course registration season. So that's about to open. And so we wanted you to have this information in advance of that. So we have 2 presenters from academic advising, Tamar Starck and Sarah Berger, and I'm going to turn things over to them and let them tell you a little bit more about themselves and guide you through this presentation. And then I'll cue you at the point where we can start taking questions again. And I'll ask you just again to hold those questions and then type them into the Q&A feature in your controls.
Thank you, Penny. So welcome everyone. My name is Tamar Starck, and I'm a senior academic and career advisor in Newcomb-Tulane College Advising. And I've been at Tulane for 16 years now in advising, working with students for the majority of those in the Newcomb-Tulane College Advising Office for about 7 years. And I'm going to hand it over to Sarah to introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be with you today. My name is Sarah Berger, and I'm also an academic and career advisor here at Newcomb-Tulane College. And I've worked at Tulane for several years, primarily for the last 2 years in academic and career advising, and then previously with the Center for Public Service and the Service Learning internships. So I'm glad to be with you today.
Next slide, please. So today we're going to try to hit on these objectives. We want to give you some information about how advising at Tulane works. We have a very special advising model, and we're going to go into a little bit of detail about that. We also want to make sure that you understand how registration time tickets and the registration timeline works for students. We'll discuss our role in registration with the students and how we really play a part in helping the student get prepared. We also want to make sure that you understand what your students' roles and responsibilities are, because they also have specific things that they need to do in this process. We want to talk about how you can best support your students so that they have a good experience through the registration process. And we'll give you some reminders about dates and some resources that you can access. And then, as Penny said, at the end, we'll have time for questions. Next slide.
All right, so first I want to start out by sharing a little bit about the advising model at Tulane. So we do have a tiered approach to advising and a lot of different points of support and information for students. We have academic advising within Newcomb-Tulane College, and we primarily advise on the core curriculum requirements and really playing a heavier hand with students as they get started out in their time at Tulane. Once students do declare a major, they all also work with a faculty advisor in their major department. So that's an important source of information and piece of professional network that they have going forward into their field of choice. We also have pre-professional advising. So those advisors are working with all of our students looking at pre-health careers, so pre-medicine, pre-nursing, pre-PA, as well as pre-law students, so students looking to go to law school afterwards. We also have offices of fellowship advising. We have career advisors and educators that work with students on their resumes, application materials, and finding those internships and professional experiences throughout and beyond their time as a student here. We also offer success coaching, which is a great resource for first-year students. That success coaching is really centered around students getting their organizational skills in order, helping with time management, because coming to Tulane is such a big shift for students coming from high school, and there's so many new things to manage. So success coaches are a great resource. We also have peer mentors in a variety of capacities for advising, for success coaching, and of course tutoring, which can be such a big help for students as they're getting used to their classes in their first semester and beyond. So if you want to learn a little bit more about this tiered approach to advising and all the different supports that we have for you, you can check out advising.tulane.edu/about/what. And so you'll be able to see more information there. So a little bit about the role of academic advising. So here at NTC, we really want to be here to help students select their courses, obviously, as they're moving into the various semesters, and thinking about how to make a plan for their academics that is going to hit all of their degree requirements. We have a very interdisciplinary core curriculum approach that all students, no matter what their majors are, have different, I like to call them buckets, so different categories that they have to fill with different classes. And so really helping them use those core curriculum requirements to explore what their interests are and what their prospective majors and minors might be at Tulane. So we have a lot of options in terms of majors and minors, specialized study options, and just really interesting programs across campus for students to dive into whatever field or direction they'd like to go. As you know, students, when they're admitted to Tulane, they're admitted to all 5 schools, so business, architecture, public health, science and engineering, and liberal arts. And so sometimes students have more than one interest across schools. So helping them, navigate those shifts if they decide to make a change from one to the other, or figuring out how to straddle that line if they're really between 2 different majors that are different from each other. But trying to think about those things in a timely way and keep them on track to get that, degree progress and on track to graduate in 4 years. Also, university has a lot of different policies and procedures, and so we're the experts on that. So helping students understand what those policies are, how to navigate them. But as an important note here, a lot of them revolve around the academic calendar, which is published by the registrar every semester. So that's a very important website for parents and students to bookmark, to know, what is coming down the line. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later as well. We also have, transfer credit review and approvals for students that are taking coursework outside of Tulane. If, there are reasons that students might need to withdraw or take a leave of absence, we're also here to help them navigate that process. And of course, pre-professional planning and preparation, which seems like a long ways away now, but if they're first-year students, but there's always little pieces along the way to organize. So we're here to support for all those pieces. And so we have a lot of different advising resources for students to call upon, and there are so many ways to connect with advising support. And while each student does have an individual advisor assigned to them, we have a team, an army of advisors here that are equipped with this great information to support your students. So here you can see through our Connect website ways that students can engage with us and get their questions answered. That might be through an in-person appointment. It might be through an in-person drop-in advising event, which we'll talk about a few of those later. There are various campus events where we're always trying to have advisors out there and available to answer questions for students. We also offer a drop-in virtual service called Advisor of the Day, where one of us is in a Zoom room during business hours for students to drop in with quick questions. And we find that that's really helpful, especially during the registration period when students might have those quick questions. So we have a lot of ways for students to engage here through the website and a lot of just opportunities for students to get their questions answered in person or virtually. So do check out that website and see, everything that we have to offer. We do, as I mentioned, have some important dates that come up at the end of the semester. So, most immediate, we've got the Thanksgiving holiday coming up. Classes will start back up again on November the 28th. And then, believe it or not, last day of classes is already December the 9th. So we have a study period built in, an exam period, and then when final grades are due for all students. But again, the Thanksgiving, all the holidays, all the important dates are going to be published on the registrar's website. So be sure to keep an eye on that academic calendar always for upcoming important dates and deadlines.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the logistics of registration and just how it works. So we are currently in the priority registration period for the spring semester, which means that's when students are able to make their first schedule for the following semester. The priority registration period lasts about 2 weeks. And students' registration, once it's open, it remains open all the way through the remainder of the semester and into the beginning of the spring semester. So there's a lot of time built in for students to get their schedules the way that they want them to be, and a lot of time for students to connect with advising as they're working on their schedules. Every student is assigned a registration time ticket that they can see once they log into their Gitson student portal, or if they're logged into the schedule of classes, it'll be in a blue ribbon right at the top of their page. And time tickets are given out according to the amount of credits earned by the student. So seniors register first because they have the most amount of credits, and freshmen register after everyone because they maybe haven't earned any credits yet, or have a few credits. So you can actually see what those time tickets are on the registrar's website. They do publish that, so it's open information for everybody to see. Students roll in every day based on the number of credits they've earned, starting at 8 a.m. and ending at 4 p.m. Central Time. There is no registration. There are no registration time tickets handed out over the weekend. So it's just Monday through Friday for these 2 weeks. As I said, it's based on credits earned. And I don't believe AP credits are factored into this for an equity, as to create equity amongst the freshman class, basically. Not everybody took AP credits or IB credits before they entered Tulane. So it's, we're trying to make this an equitable system. It is run by the registrar's office. Time tickets cannot be changed. So if a student feels like there is a problem with their time ticket, they could contact the registrar's office, but just know that it most likely is accurate based on the credits they've earned. So a little bit about how many credits a student is able to register during that priority registration period. So all Newcomb-Tulane College students are required to register for a minimum of 12 credits each semester. During priority registration, everybody's maximum is capped at 16 credits, so that people aren't adding too many classes to their schedules because they're shopping around, and that gives other students the ability to get into classes that might be closed because they've been filled by students who are just checking out a class. So once everybody's had the chance to register, everybody's credit limit will then increase to 19 credits. And that will happen on November 21st. So it's the Monday after priority registration finishes, basically. At that point, students can add another class to their schedule if they want to bump up to 19 credits. And then again, registration will remain open over the holidays. Once they returned to campus, even for the first 2 weeks, we have an add drop period where students can go to all their classes, see how they feel, and if they feel like they need to make an adjustment, they'll be able to either add a different class or drop a class if they need to. We do recommend that first year students especially meet with their advisor or at least check in with them about whether or not it makes sense for them to make an adjustment to their schedule, especially in the second week of the semester. If they haven't already attended a class, sometimes it's not recommended that they then add a class because they'll have missed possibly up to 4 class meetings at that point. So again, it's a 12 credit minimum that they need to be registered for. They'll be able to register for 16 credits, and then on November 21st, it'll go up to 19 credits. We do always recommend that if a student wants a class that has no more available seats, that they get on the wait list for that class. And the way wait lists work is if a seat becomes available, say a student decides to make an adjustment to their schedule, they drop a class, a seat becomes available in that class, the first person on that wait list will receive an email to their Tulane email account. So students who are on wait list should be checking their email every day, and they'll have 48 hours to then go into the schedule of classes, the registration system, and add that class to their schedule. If they miss the email or aren't able to hit that submit button within those 48 hours, unfortunately, they will no longer be on the wait list. They will no longer have that seat available to them. So we do recommend that they're always checking their email over break, especially. And then again, we do recommend that you and your students bookmark the academic calendar so that you're aware of all of the very, very important dates throughout the semester. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit in more detail about the advising role in registration. Sarah gave you a good overview of like our role in general with students, but I want to talk to you about how we work with students specifically in registration. So starting at the bottom of this pyramid, we talked about how, Newcomb-Tulane College students are admitted into all 5 schools. So there's a lot of flexibility in the curriculum for students to explore. And we do help with that exploration. And we do hope that students are meeting with their advisors throughout the semester so that they can have those exploration discussions, which might be sometimes a little bit longer. And sometimes during the registration period, our goal is to really make sure that students register for classes and like build a really good schedule. So those conversations tend to be best had before the registration conversation. We do refer students to specialists and to the different schools, so the major advisors or the faculty advisors, specifically to talk about course sequencing in a specific major or minor, because the schools are the ones that actually are the holders of that knowledge. We work with the students on the general core curriculum and overall planning, but we definitely want the students to be connecting with their major advisors or the minor directors or if they're pursuing a certificate, that specific department. So we do a lot of referring out. We also will be making some course and curriculum recommendations to the students based on their interests mainly, but also on their strengths and what we know about the different ways that students can explore the curriculum and fulfill the requirements that they need to in order to graduate. We always recommend that a student balances, especially when they're in their first couple of years, recommend balancing courses that will help them explore their majors and potential minors with core curriculum requirements so that they're constantly kind of chipping away at all of the requirements that they have. So it's rare that we recommend a student to take 4 or 3 even courses in a major if they're in their first year or two. So some balance there, and it can also be balanced across the core curriculum. So if a student knows that they're maybe not as confident in the sciences or maths, we wouldn't want to overwhelm them with 2 math and science courses in a semester and spread those out throughout their time. While we're talking about registration with students, we are helping them explore the majors, and that we're mainly doing that through the degree audit, which is a tool that students have access to on their Gibson portal. And they can explore different majors and minors and what the required courses are for those programs. So we work directly with the student we teach them how to read the degree audit and how to use it as a planning tool. So that's how we really help students explore different majors and minors. We also do recommend that students go to the department's websites, and there's always a lot of very up-to-date information on those websites, and going directly to the department is where they're going to get the most accurate information about those majors and minors. And then at the very top, our main goal is to graduate a student, right? So make sure that their core curriculum is complete, and our goal is to graduate students in the 4 years, unless they're in a 5-year program, like an architecture program, for example. But we do, our goal is to get the student completed in their core curriculum, their majors, any other interests they have within those 4 years. Next slide, please, Penny.
Okay, so there are several ways that you can connect with advisors and with advising support services as a student. And they're all listed through our website, advising.tulane.edu/connect. So I kind of mentioned through some of these options earlier, but important to know that students have many ways that they can get advising support during the registration period and all the time throughout the semesters. We've got in-person or virtual appointments. Students have the option to choose those if they're meeting with their specific advisor, and they can schedule those appointments up to a full week ahead. So while we do recommend that students meet with their advisors at least once a semester, it is up to them to schedule those appointments. And we do encourage students to do that, as often as they feel is helpful to their degree planning. And we really encourage students to meet with us early in the semester or midpoint in the semester, because the idea is that by the time registration comes around, they already have a pretty good sense of a plan moving forward, and they've already addressed some of those pressing questions. So we also have, to support students, walk-in advising. So we have walk-in advising services, both in person at Mussafer Hall, also at different locations on campus in front of the tutoring center on Tuesdays. We have our virtual service, which is the advisor of the day. I mentioned this earlier, but students can pop in to see an advisor in a Zoom room for a quick question. Now, that's not a substitution for like a full-on advising appointment where they have, very nuanced questions about choosing a major or thing like that. But if they have quick questions about, how to navigate something with the scheduling system or a quick policy question, that's something that we can get done in an advisor of the day drop-in appointment. So really, we're encouraging students to meet with us regularly. It might just be to say, hey, I'm having a hard time adjusting, and I was thinking about maybe I could join the volleyball club or something, but I don't really know where to start. Or, because we do a lot of referring at advising, and there's a lot of value to seeing your advisor on a regular basis, even if it's not very pointed questions about scheduling. But that's the benefit too, is that you kind of get ahead on those conversations. Next slide, please. So as I was mentioning, some of the campus events that we're offering this summer, we've got the registration roundup event every Tuesday in the Academic Learning and Tutoring Center, and that is conveniently located at the garden level of the main library. So library is probably the most popular spot for students to go and study, maybe outside of the LBC, but we have advisors standing by from 4 to 6 p.m. every Tuesday. They can pop in and probably get something to eat, like a free snack or something, some swag, and just pop in and ask questions. And they can come in groups too, because a lot of times the questions are ones that many people have at the same time. So we've got that event. We also have the Mondays at Mussafer through November the 14th, which is right now we're in our peak registration period, 1 to 3 p.m. And then we just had an event at the freshman dorms. It just happened 2 nights ago, midnight advising. So we had a team of advisors at Sharp Hall, one of our freshman dorms, from 9 p.m. until midnight, which a lot of students like to study in the evening hours, and that was a big hit. We had a lot of students come and ask their questions there. So we're just trying to put that information out there and be available as we can for students. Next slide.
Okay. I also want to just mention that during this next week and a half, there's always going to be an advising presence in the lobby of Mussafer Hall. A member of the advising leadership team is down there to help with any drop-in questions. So you can always just, send your student to Mussafer Hall during business hours, about 9 until about 4:30, and they can get questions answered. So now I want to switch to what the students' roles and responsibilities are during this time, and really throughout their time at Tulane in regards to advising. We want the student we need them to be active participants in their planning of their education. So during registration, we want them to make sure that they know where they can see their registration time ticket and know when it is, and put that in their calendar so that they don't miss it. I've had students ask me recently, what if I'm in a class, or I can't my registration time ticket is exactly when I have something else going on. That time ticket will remain open. So if you're unable to, hit that submit button right on that hour, there is still time to register for classes. And if a student is in a class, they could ask their instructor if it would be okay if they could pull out their phone or their laptop or step out of the room to submit the registration. It will, of course, be up to the instructor. But I do want students to know that they can, always try to advocate for themselves and know that if the instructor is not okay with that they still have time to register for their classes. We also want to make sure that students are aware of any holds that might be on their registration, either placed by accounts receivable for like an unpaid bill or a parking ticket sometimes, or for immunization reasons. I don't think unless the student hasn't updated their immunization records for this current semester, they shouldn't have a hold from the Student Health Center, but they can see their holds when they log into Gibson and hopefully get them worked out before registration happens. we do want students to feel really comfortable using their degree works audit, and that's accessible on their student page on Gibson. If they haven't already met with their advisor, they should definitely have a meeting with their advisor to learn how to read their degree audit, so that they can understand what the core requirements are, and also they can use it to explore different majors or minors using what's called the what if program on the audit. They can just change the major or minor to something that they might be interested in and see what the courses are required for that major or minor. Planners and backup courses. So when a student is, and maybe you've also gone onto the class schedule website, it's classschedule.tulane.edu. That's where you can see what courses are being offered each semester, and that's where students actually register for their classes as well. In order to, I wish we had a live demo here, but I don't think we have time to do that. But when you go into the class schedule, you can search for classes based on a lot of different criteria, including subject area, core curriculum requirement, by professor, by time even, and then you can read course descriptions by just clicking on the course number so that you can read about the course. You can see all of the information about any prerequisites, the times that the classes are being offered, where it's being offered. And we, want students to be really comfortable reading all of the information in each course's little box so that they understand what is available to them, what isn't available to them based on maybe prerequisites or class restrictions. So some classes might be open only to freshmen or only to seniors or only to students who are declared majors in a specific major. So we want students to use that system to create planners, and they would actually create a schedule. It looks like a little calendar where they would put the classes that they want to register for ahead of time, ahead of their registration time ticket being open. And that's when they are able to connect with advising, the advisors can help them put that schedule together. We do recommend that students have more than one planner ready to go for registration, just in case classes fill up before their registration time ticket opens. So have a lot of options available so that when their time ticket opens, they have it all set to go and they can hit that submit button. We do also want students to be meeting with their major advisors or faculty advisors in their programs that they're interested in, or use the catalog or departmental websites to understand what courses will be required for those majors or minors they're interested in before registration. And then being flexible is probably the biggest piece of advice we want students to take away because, the time period for registration is very long, right? They have 2 months really before next semester begins. We want them to have a lot of flexibility, knowing that especially over the break, students, they might get a little bored with being home and start looking at their schedules and making some changes. So classes tend to open up a little bit over that winter break period, and especially right before the semester begins. So if they've been on a wait list, they might be able to get off the wait list at that point, or they might be able to see an available seat in a class that was previously closed. Next slide, please.
Oh, Tamara, I just wanted to pop in for emphasis that the schedule can and probably will change a lot between registration period and the beginning of the spring semester. So again, there's lots of time for things to change, and more often than not, they do. So I always tell students, if it doesn't look perfect right away, it's okay. There's lots of time to make adjustments.
Yeah, and this slide just kind of points to that as well. There's lots of time, 2 months before the spring semester begins. And there is that 2-week period at the very beginning of the semester that's a drop add period. So students can go to their classes, see how they feel, see if, if it makes sense to have a class at the front of campus and then, 10 or 15 minutes later at the back of campus, they might want to make an adjustment once they actually go to all of their classes and see how they're moving around campus. So, continuing to work with their advisor or an advisor in our office, if they do want to make any changes, is always recommended. Okay, next slide.
All right, so planning ahead. There are some majors that have 4-year plans on their websites, and we've named them here, architecture and engineering, because they are so very sequenced and specific that they have a very rigorous plan in terms of what you're going to take every semester. But that is the very small minority of majors. In fact, most majors are very flexible. And they can kind of, students will begin to develop out a 4-year plan that will usually start with, checking a lot of boxes for the core curriculum in that first year, while also keeping in mind what those major interests are. And then other major interests might start to develop, or minors or certificates. And so the idea is that your 4-year plan is kind of a living, breathing, changing plan that develops over your time at Tulane. And then you have all of these advisor supports here that, when used properly, when checking in with them regularly, can help make sure that they are checking the boxes they need to check, while also allowing them the space to explore what they're interested in studying. Another one that I would add to that list too, for the more certain majors, would be anything within the business school. A lot of the business people that are interested in business might not know, but there are a lot of prerequisites that students might have to take before getting into the core curriculum. But again, working in conjunction with advising supports on campus with NTC and with faculty in different departments, students can note that they're in good hands, being active participants in exploring what they want to pursue, and in conjunction with advising services, making the best schedule that they need, and making their 4-year plan come to life. And so we wanted to bring up a little bit about summer school and summer planning because we are entering the spring semester soon, and students are starting to think, well, what am I going to do with the summer, between? Because that is a big gap, and there are a lot of options for students to pursue. So sometimes students will take classes over the summer. So there's Tulane Summer School. They also might decide that they'd like to take classes for transfer credit at another school. And we can certainly work with them around those parameters to transfer in courses if they want to or need to. There are also several study abroad programs that run over the summer. Some of them are, regular academic study abroad. Some of them even include service learning components. And I'm sure many of you know that service learning is a big part of the Tulane curriculum. It's a 2-tiered requirement for all students, regardless of their major. So that service learning abroad is a great way to get that experience and also go abroad. There's also a lot of opportunities at Tulane for research. And there are a lot of grants available and programs for faculty mentorship. So that's also another great option for students that are interested in doing research during their time as a student here.
Okay, I think this is me. So how can you best support your students during registration and in general while they're at Tulane? So, we do want you to have a role, obviously, in how your students are deciding their academic careers here. So you can help them understand and talk about what kinds of classes they enjoy, what they do well in, maybe based on their high school experience, but also based on some new found skills or interests that they have from being at Tulane for a semester or two. So just having those like reflective conversations, I think is really helpful for students to get. Maybe expanding that also to other family members, right? They might not always listen to parents' wisdom or advisors' wisdom, but might have, a close family member that they feel comfortable with, who they might want to reflect with. We do recommend that you start thinking about the future, like what are they going to be doing this coming summer, and are there going to be any additional plans that might need to be made or additional resources that might need to be put in place in order for them to have that summer experience that they might want. We do recommend that you are pushing them to meet with us often and early. And they can do that through all of the, different events that we've been holding, through one-on-one meetings, either in person or virtually. But, making sure that they understand how to access our website and advising. And then I think this is the biggest one, is to help them stay calm and patient and flexible around registration. They might not initially get into the exact class they want based on some information they've heard from other students, like maybe there's this one instructor that you have to take. Those are often very subjective experiences that students have, and we do want students to be able to explore for themselves what classes might be best for them. So if a student isn't getting into the classes that they feel like they should be getting into, help them manage their expectations around that. And we can also help them find other options, and maybe even broaden their interests a little bit, or maybe recommend that they wait into a semester or two to take a specific class when the registration time ticket might be a little bit earlier. So that's basically it. So if you can go to the next slide, Penny, we'll give you a list of resources that you can access once these slides are sent out, if the slides are being sent out. I don't know if it's just the slides or the whole presentation. But again, the DegreeWorks degree audit is accessible to the student on their Gibson homepage, their student page. The registrar's calendars, please bookmark that so that you know when the semester begins and ends, and when different things are happening. The class schedule.tulane.edu is where the students register through that website, and where you can see all of the classes that are being offered in a given semester. You can also see previous semesters classes in that. The catalog is a very big wealth of information about all of the policies and procedures, as well as all of the course descriptions are listed in there, and all of the academic programs are cataloged in there. So that's also a good one to bookmark. Our website is advising.tulane.edu, and you can always, if you're not able to, if your student isn't able to connect with someone immediately, or in a good time frame, you can always have them email advising@tulane.edu or give our front office a call. And then on our website, we have a really great page of all of the academic programs that has a lot of information about all of the requirements for all of the majors and minors, but also I believe, links to some career information as well. And then finally, FERPA release forms are available on that website, on our website under resources. So as you're probably aware, we are limited to what kind of information we can share with people who are not the student about their academic record. And I think the next page is just the questions. There's also a QR code. You can just use your phone camera to go to this. And this is where students can register for an appointment with their advisor. And the final slide there is a little survey, a 1-minute survey. And we do want to thank you for being with us. I think Penny is now going to go through the Q&A.
Yes, so we have a few questions now, and we have just a few minutes where we can take some of these. So now's the time to type those in if you have questions. And I will send out, we'll post on the parent program, so family programs website, the link to the recording of the webinar and a PDF of the slides. So here's the first question. When can first-year students see the pre-professional fellowship and career advisor? Can they go ahead and start to do that at that point in their career?
I can take that one. Yes, they can start seeing pre-professional advising or any of our advising services as early as they wish. Again, they do have to reach out and make the appointment. So if that's something that they would like to do, and I do recommend that if they're pre-health or pre-law, to go ahead and start meeting with that person early. Even though, the MCAT or the LSAT or anything like that isn't down the road for a while, it's never too early to start planning and thinking about course recommendations and things like that.
And I think to answer one of the other questions that's here, just to clarify, while all the students were assigned an advisor from the beginning based on what they indicated their interest was in a major or whether they were exploring, the pre-health or pre-professional, pre-law, that is someone they have to reach out to, correct?
Well, yes. So you do have to reach out and schedule an appointment to meet with a regular advisor with NTC advising or with pre-health advising. Either way, the impetus is on the student to make the appointment. Yes.
And on the advising website, there is one page that shows all the advisors, what their areas are, and it has a link to their emails that the students can use. So another question is, do honors students still have priority during second semester for registration?
So no, for the spring registration, all students are assigned a time ticket based on how many credits they've earned. So they do not have early registration anymore. It's basically just that for that first semester during honors weekend is when they get an advanced registration time.
And the tickets for their registration time during this season, that's called priority registration, those are assigned, as you said, by number of credit hours, earned
credits earned, correct. So if a student didn't take any college level courses prior to attending Tulane, they'll have 0 credits. And so earned, 0 credits earned. And so all of the students who come in as freshmen with 0 credits earned are kind of in this bucket that are, and those time tickets are doled out randomly.
Okay, so I think that answers the question, that they're randomly assigned within that sort of bucket of credit hours. I think that answers a couple of questions here. How many credits does a student need for a Bachelor of Science undergraduate degree?
120. So all students for a Bachelor's of Arts or a Bachelor's of Science The requirement is 120. For a Bachelor's of Science in Management is 122 credits.
And that's the business degree. And then engineering students need 127, I believe. And then, yeah. So, but 120 is the minimum for all degrees.
And how many credits are considered to be a sophomore? How many credit hours does it take to have that status?
So 25 credits, I believe, is where sophomore standing begins.
I think you've addressed this since the person wrote in the question, but they said that their student says that she's stressed because there are barely any appointments available. Can you provide just a little recap of how they should sort of read that situation and what options they can take at that point?
I can take that. Yeah. So please have your student check every morning for an advising appointment on our website. New appointments are opened up every day, and they're open up for a week out. So there might not be an appointment available for the next 6 days, but tomorrow when they log in, if they log in the morning, there will be more appointments available for that 7th day or 8th day. So they would just need to get up early and do that. And then, the advisor of the day, it is, for quick questions mainly, but if the student wants to come into Mussafer Hall and meet with one of the advising leaders down in the lobby, we can spend more time there. That has not been very busy. So I would recommend that they walk into Mussafer Hall between like 9 a.m. and 4:30 p.m., but especially in the morning, it's been really quiet. So that's a little secret. But all of these events that we're having as well are really good places to get some advising help.
So here's a question. I understand that courses taken at other colleges need to be approved for credit by the appropriate Tulane department. In general, can Tulane core curriculum requirements, such as foreign language or math, and or major or minor requirements, be taken at another university? Is that a question you can kind of answer in the time that we have here?
Yeah, I can take that one. So, yes. However, it is subject to review and approval by the academic department. So, typically as a blanket kind of policy, transfer credits have to come from 4-year accredited universities, so no community colleges. And then the student would need to have a syllabus of the course on hand and submit it for approval to the corresponding academic department. So if it was for calculus course, they would get the syllabus for the calculus course they were planning to take at UPenn and submit it, to a faculty member in the math department. And we facilitate that, with who to contact and things like that. But typically, like if a student's going to take a transfer course in the summer, they would start talking with their academic advisor maybe earlier on in the spring semester to discuss the process, the approval process, and then ideally have everything approved well ahead of taking the class. So we want to make sure that students have those approvals before they take the courses, so they know it's going to post.
We have just a couple more minutes. So I want to try to pick out some questions that might have the broadest kind of application to people. Do waitlisted classes count towards the 16 credits they can register for?
No.
If they take a class pass fail, do those credits count towards their ticket time?
If they pass the class and receive the credit, then yes. So it's earned credits.
If their student has changed advisors or their advisor left Tulane, how do they determine their new assigned advisor if they need help figuring that out?
So they will receive notification and they'll be assigned a new advisor as soon as the other one, or even ahead of their old advisor departing from Tulane, they'll receive email notification of their new assigned advisor. And you can always see the name of your assigned NTC advisor in the Gibson student portal. So they'll always be able to see that person's name there.
If they
And they
lost
can
that
also-
email, they can just check the portal and see the name.
Or
Correct.
they can contact our office as well.
Uh, Somebody asked about that, the link to, how students make an advising appointment. So I went backwards a slide so you can see that QR code if you want to capture that link to send along to your student. They have also been sent this information from their advisors, but you want to do a little prompt, that would be helpful. And then this recording of the webinar and the PDF of the slides will be on the Family Programs website. So that'll be families.tulane.edu/webinars tutorials. So if you go to that website, there's a tab that says communications, and you'll be able to find where the archive of our webinars is located. One question was, when does summer enrollment start?
So enrollment for the summer session will be in April when students register for their fall classes. You can keep checking the summer school website. It's summerschool.tulane.edu to see. They will eventually, probably pretty soon, start posting what classes are going to be offered, and that list just expands and expands as we near April and registration for summer and fall.
So since a lot of students are first years and they're selecting their courses, in that last cohort, how many backup classes would you recommend that they have sort of lined up to consider? Do you have any suggestions for that?
It's hard to peg a certain number. I would say, thinking about the courses that they want to take, and the configuration of those courses, because a lot of students in their first year might be taking courses where there's several sections, and maybe they have, they really want to take the 11 a.m. section, maybe like also having a planner that switches times around, so in case their preferred section isn't there, they can have backup sections and not just different courses. But I would say have at least 2 to 3 different planner scenarios. That way, if your first choice isn't there, you have your backup option, and it doesn't mean that it's all said and done. Again, registration will remain open until the second week of the spring semester, so they have lots of time to make adjustments.
What classes can be taken pass-fail?
I can take that one. So the SU policy it's helpful as a GPA protector, but it's not particularly helpful for courses that are counting towards major requirements, minor requirements, or any of our NTC proficiency requirements. So there are a lot of exclusions for courses that can be taken for SU and still fulfill requirements. There's more about the SU policy on the Tulane website if you want to kind of get into the weeds a little bit, but it's not a great option for major and minor and core curriculum. It's really just a good option if as a GPA protector, and maybe if they're planning to retake the course in another semester.
And there's a limit to how many credits can be taken SU. So we don't recommend it unless it's a necessity, really.
That's satisfactory, unsatisfactory.
Correct.
One question was if a student is a little bit confused about requirements for the coordinate majors that she's considering, if she's limited in her choice for a primary major, is that something the advising office can answer, or does she need to contact the department for that coordinate major? What's the best strategy there?
I mean, both. Her advisor can be kind of the first point of contact about that. We can definitely help her understand what the requirements are for that major and the configuration with the primary major. But then ultimately, we do want the student to connect with that majors department.
So there are a couple of questions about how can students find guidance about narrowing down their interests or sort of solidifying their interest and career path and strengths and weaknesses. And I hope that you might say a little bit about the CRDV course, because I think that's a really great option for students who are exploring and could really benefit from the structure and support that that course provides.
Sure. So our Career Center runs a course called Majors, Internships, and Jobs. And it's a great course for students to basically explore what the different options are for how majors can or don't have to directly relate to a job later or a career field. So it's a 1 credit course. I think it's 1 credit. And so it's easy to fit in to a schedule with, 4 or 5 classes. They get a lot of really great hands-on experience, like working with resumes and job searches and understanding what people who have gone into that field may have majored in or may not have majored in.
And the great thing about the course is that it's pitched at different levels. So there are some sections that are open only to first year and sophomores, I believe, and it focuses more on defining those major interests. And then the ones that are open for juniors focus more on internships, and the ones for seniors look more at the job search. So there's a part of the course, some of the content's sort of common to all, but then they'll have different focus areas depending on the class year. So I think that that's a great thing to suggest to your student to explore that course possibility. It's CRDV, sort of an acronym for Career Development 1090, right?
Yep.
CRDV 1090.
And I'll also add that, these are conversations that come up a lot in advising appointments. And I'm always encouraging students to talk to people on campus. It's one of the greatest advantages to being on a campus like Tulane's campus is we have these incredible faculty members that are doing really great things, that are experts in the field. And we have a small enough student body to where they may be connected to upperclassmen that are pursuing majors and things that they might be interested in exploring themselves. So really opening themselves up to tapping into faculty and upperclassmen, and starting to sit in on classes that they might be interested to take, exploring interest through clubs. So just encouraging them to be proactive about thinking about ways they can get information instead of just getting lost online. There's a lot of real information out there for students.
And there are career advisors too that they can talk with. And I'll also recommend that students really start to explore the website of the majors that they're interested in. So the academic departments, if they'll tune into those things, they'll also see that they sponsor things like panel presentations, and they might have student organizations related to that academic interest. And so there'll be special activities that they'll hold. So there are a lot of ways for them to explore those things beyond taking specific classes. And I think that it's really smart for students to kind of augment what they're doing by building their courses and meeting those requirements, but to explore outside of those as well through the different resources and activities that are offered. So it's really time to kind of wrap up. We've gone over time, so I would like to thank Sarah and Tamar for sharing their expertise and their time with everyone today, and want to thank the parents who have stayed with us till the end here. Hope that you feel like this was a useful exercise for you to engage in. Here's that QR code to the very short survey just to give feedback about the webinar. If you didn't capture that, you can always send feedback to families@tulane.edu, and I'll forward that along to my colleagues. Or if you have suggestions for other family webinar topics that you'd like to see in the future, then you're welcome to share that as well. Just families@tulane.edu. So again, you can find this information in the archive next week. And I think we'll wrap up now and just say thank you to everyone. And we wish your student a very productive and good registration season through this priority registration process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.